Kate Sheehan Roach with ProSocial World, talking about Wayne Teasdale's 9 elements of interspirituality. Element 5 is embracing a daily spiritual practice. He describes spiritual practice as the work of inner transformation. He goes on to go into great detail. This is the longest chapter of all of the 9 elements. He goes into great detail talking about the many different types of practice that he's familiar with and that he recommends. But he says it's ultimately spiritual practice is the technology of inner change. He goes on to say that without spiritual practice, the spiritual journey is hollow. He says that we'll never attain the maturity and the fruits of spiritual life if we're not engaging in a daily contemplative spiritual practice. Now, a lot of people have different definitions for the word contemplative. You know, sometimes people think of that as contemplating something, thinking heavily and deeply on a subject, whereas others describe contemplative as having no subject, having no to let go of the need for conscious thought. Obviously, nobody can turn their brain off, but the idea of meditation is to be less addicted to our need to know. So Wayne rattles off so many different possibilities. Lectio Divina is one method he talks about, which is a sacred reading that involves 5 stages of slowing down our interpretation of a short passage until we eventually relinquish our need to control that interpretation. He talks about active and passive contemplation, that, as I just described, in some ways, contemplation is a moving toward an embrace, and in other ways, it is a still receptivity. He also talks about vipassana, of insight meditation, transcendental meditation, Tibetan Buddhist meditation, yoga, martial arts, chanting, singing, and in his tradition, in the Catholic tradition, the liturgy, and what he refers to as conventional prayer. There are all sorts of methods, all different ways to go. In fact, at one point, Wayne in the book describes all spiritual practices having the same goal. He writes, spiritual practice is to the mystical life what food and water is to the body. We just cannot survive very long without food and water. We cannot survive on the spiritual journey without a contemplative practice of some sort. He says there are as many forms of spiritual practice as there are individuals. Forms may differ, but the goal is the same: integration and transformation. So, element 5, spiritual practice.